the number one mistakes that I see that most coffee carts make, or I would probably even like pivot and say that one of the most expensive mistakes that you can make. And I'm about to cook, yes. I'm really passionate about the subject. And this is going to be nitty gritty. So I'm going to promise I'm going to tell you guys what the mistake is. We're going to go from how to solve from that, and then a couple of cool, tangible, different things you guys can apply. Now, half of the people might be like, this is perfect because you might be on a journey where you are either one, looking at starting your coffee cart, two, you're kind of like right in the beginning, or three, this is reaffirming like where to maybe focus more on, or just that you've made the right decision, right? I don't know where that path is aligned. And so my proof behind this is that I'm kind of finished up 5 years. I'm kind of 5.5 years in. Our coffee cart phase two has booked some of the largest corporations in the world, from artists to backstage to corporate clients to, I think over 100 weddings at this point. I think over maybe 500, 600, 700 events. And we have a full-time hired director, and I'd say 90% of the events I don't even go to anymore. I've been able to outsource that, understand that. Been on a lot of consulting calls, been in mentorship groups. So all of this is just the combined knowledge and juice of just analyzing what I've learned and applied real life experience from mentors into this. And then also just by mentoring, I think we have at this point talking like I think 17 to 18 different coffee carts all around. So we have one in Toronto, in Cali, in Nashville, in Texas. These are guys that anywhere from like they're starting off their coffee cart, which is the best time to have mentorship actually, or they've been in the game for a year, 2 years in. So the number one biggest mistake, or the most expensive mistake I see, is that people will start a cart and they don't understand the business they're in, right? They don't know what they're selling. That is the number one thing. And it kind of makes sense because 90% of the coffee cart community, or the people wanting to start a coffee cart, are going to be baristas. And I get it. And barista is an amazing skill set. But one of the things you don't see as a barista is that being a barista and then an owner is a totally separate skill set. And so just because you could be a really, really good barista, you're passionate about coffee, or you know the different machines and lattes, does not mean that you can run a successful business. It does not mean that you can't. It just doesn't mean you can. And so that is the thing that I see. And so if I could go back and understand this more, I kind of had a cheat code because I ran a business before. I was in a mowing business and I had a lot of friends that were business owners and friends that were salesmen. So I kind of had a little bit of an advantage when starting out. But something I wish I would have doubled down more on was understanding, why am I starting this business? And I know this might hurt people's feelings, but this is just the real. The market does not care like in the beginning while you start your business. They care once you're successful, to an extent. There might be a few like friends and family, I get it. But overall, like if you're trying to scale and really build a big business in those first 1 to 3 years, guys, no one really cares. People have too many things going on and they're trying to solve their own problems. And so that is the big key. Is like you got to figure out, what is a business? What's a business solves a problem. You're either solving two problems, really. You're either solving pain or pleasure. And I would say more so the coffee cart leans on pleasure more than anything, rather than pain. Now, there is some pain points that you can kind of solve for because like there's risk in running a service business. But usually when people are running a coffee cart, they're not thinking, oh my goodness, the pain needs to go away. They're thinking, wow, how can I elevate this event? This can be really fun. This can be really cool add-on. So going back to the number one mistake, it's just not understanding what business you're in. And so just because you want to have a coffee cart business does not mean the market will pay you money for that business. You have to understand and rewire and understand, okay, like, what is a coffee cart? What am I selling? What is my offer? And so what I would say the first thing is like, you want to figure out what you are selling. And then like you have an offer, but what is your offer? And so that's important because if you don't know that, then everything else is going to be a headache. But if you can solve an understanding like, okay, wow, I do run a coffee cart business. Cool. I love it. You're passionate about it. Fill in the blanks. You want to be a barista. Maybe you have a side hustle. Maybe your mom, your dad somewhere. Who knows the reason? But the biggest thing is like, what is this business solving? It's solving pleasure. My offer is to help elevate events. All right, now we're getting somewhere. And that what the second thing that really coincides is, does your market support your offer? I wish I had more people like talked about this, but like location is probably the single greatest indication and one of the highest leverage things that you can have in your business because you're a service-based business. Like that's what you are. So to give you kind of cheat code, you are in a service-based business. You're solving basically a pleasure problem, and your offer is going to be something around like helping elevate events. We go more into that like with the community. I don't have time. That's a whole different course in itself. But you need to figure that out first. And so also look into your market and be like, okay, well, I want to start a coffee cart. I feel like I have this offer. Awesome. I'll help elevate events and it's going to be maybe more high ticket. Maybe it's going to do pop-ups. Maybe we do farmers market. You got to figure out what your jam is. Maybe you focus on weddings. Maybe you focus on birthday parties, graduations. In the beginning, you're probably going to take a whole bunch of some. After about a couple months, you kind of figure out, all right, I like doing these events. I don't like doing brand activations. Anyways, that is part of the stepping ladder of what you're trying to figure out. Big and that goes into this whole like big mistake, but it's like location just matters so much, guys. Like there's a reason why you don't start a snow plowing company in Arizona. Why? Like we think it's common sense, but like there's a reason why. And so people that say that location doesn't affect your business would also be the same to say that no one's going to start their coffee cart in Alaska or Antarctica. Why? You could have an amazing operator, amazing offer, the best owner, Alex Ramosi is there, Gary Vee is there, Jeff Bezos is there running his coffee cart. He's probably gonna get zero sales. Why? The market's not ready. There's no one there. No one's there. No one has the budget. No one lives there, right? So that matters so much. And so you have to be able to understand. You can just do chat, you can do Claude, you can look it up, and you can look just knowing around of like you can ask some people around, ask friends, ask neighbors. Hey, if I had this coffee cart business, do you know of anyone that would potentially like book this or invest in this? And you'd be able to figure out real quick within like 30, 40 people to get a census, or you can put on an Instagram poll, whatever that is. And like if there's a lot of like resounding no's, I'm not trying to be a dream killer. You just have to understand the reality of like maybe a lot of people in that space wouldn't be there, or they wouldn't want to support or want to buy your business because of what you're selling. And so like it's even like there's a reason why like you're not having a mowing company in the Sahara Desert, like location matter, make it extreme. But like if you're in a small town where there's like 20,000 people and the next biggest city is like an hour away and you're charging something 500, 600, 700 bucks, your small town is probably not going to be able to afford that or going to see the reason why. And so that's why we go back to like, what's your offer? Like, what are you selling with your offer? Does your market support it? Because all of those things are going to be like the foundation, the bricklaying of where you're going to head and like how much, what you can do. The next thing is, and that would go from there is like, does it support your goals with your business? So it's like you get all this information, you're like, okay, maybe it's yes, I figure out what I'm selling, I'm figuring out what I'm going to offer. I think my market supports it. I've done enough research as I can. And it's like, all right, my goal is to make $20,000 a month. It's like, okay, if you look around, do some market research, what would it take for you to hit 20,000 a month? Think about it. All right, well, if you want to do 20,000 a month, let's just say you do 20 events for 3 hours and it's $1,000. So it's like you're doing 20 events. All right. If you want to do 20K too, you can do 10 events, but are those types of events in your market there? One thing you look at, do you see competition? Big hack on this. And this is why people like a lot of competitors like, oh, it's too competitive. Like, guys, let's be real. If your competitor thought it was too bad that it was like it's too competitive, they wouldn't be staying in the market. Like they're still doing the business and they're doing really good revenue. Like just saying, I think they're probably telling you that because they don't want you to know the secret sauce. Anyways, I'll get off my horse. That matters so much, like what your goals are. Because if you're trying at 20K and you're like, you know what, if I look at all this stuff and I'm not going to support it, but I don't know if I get 20K, I'm like the only coffee cart in my market. The realistic sign is maybe that's not it. So that's just good for you to know. So you're not getting frustrated with yourself. Because one of the worst things you can do is get in this business and you're comparing yourself to other people like in big cities and big locations, people that have been in it for 7 to 10 years that have had these relationships, and you can't copy that because they were first and like there's only one first player. All right. And you're like, man, why do I suck? It's like, you probably don't suck. It's not that you suck. I mean, obviously everyone sucks in the beginning, but it's probably less about you sucking than realizing maybe the market doesn't support those goals. And you have two decisions. You either have to, one, be okay with it and like just see how much you can push it and be consistent and find income elsewhere or different goals outside of it. Or two, you move to a different location. You move to a different city. And some of you guys, that's why I'm like making this video, like some of you guys could be in a small town, you feel very passionate about running a coffee cart business. And like, especially if it's more private, like high ticket events, but like you guys cannot compare yourself to Miami or LA, because even if you could sell those events, even if you could do a great job and execute and you have the market for it, half those companies aren't even in your town. So it doesn't even matter. Like this is the real. I wish people just talked about this. Like location is like, it's it's so big. I'm not giving an excuse to people that are like don't work hard in those big cities, or like if you're in one of those, but it just makes your job a lot easier. Like in order to be great, you still don't have to work. I'm just saying there's different leverages and different uh, needles that you can move in your business. I don't know if it's the right word to say, but different levers, I guess you move into your business where that's leverage. Like you know, if I basically a market that supports your goals, that's big, that has the events, that has the budgets as well, that has that network, it's like basically, driving in a Ferrari. In a smaller market, like if you're out in the suburbs and like the biggest town from you is like, 2 hours away, you're basically like running. So you're doing the same efforts that someone has a different vehicle. Someone has a bike, someone has a car. You got to figure out that kind of vehicle. And that's basically like going from your market, what you're selling, what you're offering, know your market, what are your goals. And then the real is I have written down. So if it can support your goals, like let's say everything is going well, done the data, the research, you figured it out. If this is all true, what would it take for you to get there? You got to start asking yourself that in the beginning. And I think too many people focus on the lattes and syrups. And yes, spend time to do that because can be like your creative advantage of how you're going to build and to scale, right? In some ways. But the more important thing is understanding what it's going to take to get there. So you solved every single problem of like what you're going to sell, what your offer, how you're going to sell it, knowing your market supports it. You think your market supports your goals. Oh, cool. Now how are you going to get there? What's your game plan? What's your 3 month game plan? What's your 6 month? What's your year? I think that's why mentorship is huge. Because you're able to get there so much faster and easier and narrow down. Um, or you do it by yourself, and that's okay. But just figure out what would it take to get there. And I think even like an easier one, like I think a lot of people get overwhelmed, even me. Like sometimes I'm like, all right, how do I get to this? Like I got some goals right now that I'm trying to figure out. And the better, I feel like the easier thing to do is almost thinking my next thing is like, how would I not get there? And so sometimes we like overwhelmed, like, hey, how do I get there? I don't really know. Like I feel like it's like a fairy tale land. I want to hit the 10 to 20K months in the next year or 2 years, but like I'm like, okay, I could market or whatever. I could maybe be in this networking event, or like I could sell this type of coffee, or like I could hire this person, but like I'm not for sure. Or the second thing I just said, or the last thing I said, what would it take for you not to get there? And I guarantee you, just based off our human psychology, we're just so much, we can think about the negative so much better than the positive. I guarantee you have a long list of like how not to get there. And then write down that list or put it on a whiteboard, whatever. Like for me, I have this whiteboard, but see it, like allow yourself to see the image, like see the words and be like, all right, so how would I not get there? It's like, okay, well, one, I would never start. That's one. One, things that would take me 2 weeks to do, I would take 4 weeks to do. Okay, so I'm being lazy. Another thing, okay, I know I need to focus, but instead of like focusing on like the one thing step by step, I'd focus on like 30 things. So I'm overwhelmed, then I forget. Okay, so cool, that's another way I would fail. I wouldn't, part of it could be like I don't do enough market research. One, I keep trying to solve this problem where I should invest in some type of consulting or coach, or I should message someone, but my ego is getting in the way. Okay, so that's another one. I wouldn't follow up with people that are reaching out to me. I wouldn't invest in some sales. I wouldn't spend 3 days. So like all these things you can just write down on a list, look at and be like, all right, cool. Then you can like do none of those or do the opposite of those. And usually it's going to be your list of like how to get there. And then the more that you'll do it, the more time that you have that list, you're gonna probably write more things down, and you will fail. Like that's kind of like the thing. Like in the beginning, everyone sucks. Some people suck a little more, some people will suck a little less, but everyone sucks. That's just reality. So that is the number one biggest mistake. I feel like, in whatever journey you're at, whether it reaffirms you because you're 2, 3, 4, 5 years in, like me, and you're like, all right, cool. Like this is good that like I know my market, I know what I'm selling. Maybe you're in, you're like feel like you're struggling, and you're like in the waters of like year to 2 year mark, and you're like, okay, like I haven't figured out like exactly what I'm selling, like or my offer, or like what are even my goals, and like how not to get there or how to get there. I'm just kind of like riding the wave. I'm like building this out. I see coffee carts trending, and I'm building this thing. Do this thing. This will be the most important, one of the most important things that you can do. And then if you're starting out, holy crud, like I wish I could be you. Like there was like no one doing what me and a couple other people in this space were doing like 4 or 5 years. No one talks about this stuff. Like I paid for consulting in the beginning. I'm a big advocate for that. I think that's why. Big thing too, little bonus. I just think don't pay for like a coach that's never invested into coaching. Like I just think it's kind of crazy. So like I had it, but it was also like the coaching in the beginning was very limited. It was like one-off things. There wasn't stuff. No one was making like crazy content. Like it was either like free stuff about how to like pour lattes and like set up your coffee cart, and then it was like high-end like one-off consulting. But that was it. So figure out recap, figure out your offer. Like, what is a coffee cart business and how are you going to even sell that? Right. Like, that is the business you're in. Two, does your market support your offer and what you're going to be selling? Three, does it support the goals you're trying to accomplish in that business? And then I think we're on four. And if so, what steps do you need to take to get there? And then five, one of my favorites is what would it take for you not to get there? So that is that. I hope that helps. Hopes they give you like a leverage on either your competitors or just even yourself. Because for me, like I think I'm my own worst enemy. I'll destroy my business before anyone else outside will destroy my business.